So this is called Software Engineering Principles, and today we're going to talk about just software engineering, what it is, and something called the software crisis, which you're already involved in the software crisis. You're already victims of probably the timetabling is part of the software crisis. So this is how the module was structured last year. Maybe it will change this year. I wasn't really fully informed if there are changes, but let's say until this is the information I have until I get any new information. So it's 15 credit points. So it's split into two teaching blocks, the first semester and the second semester. Right, the first semester is lectures, and then the second semester is the group exercises where you're actually building something. Right, you're doing a group project. If there were 4 students, you'd be one group. And the lecture times are on the departmental timetable, which is changing very often. That's to be sorted out. All the material is on Blackboard, so all the lecture material and courseworks and things like that. My name is Bob or Robert Larry. You can just call me Bob. I do the lectures, the theoretical part of the module, and then Benjamin Moore does the group work and project part of the module, which is in the next semester. My office is in room 508 of Faraday Tower, and you can reach me at that email address. And this module does have a web page with supplementary information and material. So if you can find my web page, you click on Teaching, and then click on Software Engineering Principles. You'll find some links to supplementary material like free textbooks. I don't know if you've seen the free textbooks website, and some of the textbooks that we use in software engineering. The theory part of this module is based on this book called Designing Object-Oriented Software. And you'll see me referring to this book regularly, right? And these are some of the things that you can use in your group work, right? Bob's Minutes of Meeting Protocol, how to set up a web page on the CS web server, Bob's Concise Coding Conventions, and Bob's Concise Introduction to Doctogen. These are all tools that you would use in your group work, right? Which is next semester, actually. And then there's a schedule of lectures. I'll have to update this. I can see that I need a little bit of help on my HTML skills. This table doesn't look very well. And some useful links to related web pages. Like if you're learning Java, these are some nice web pages related to Java. And Java graphics, screen capturing software, and so on, software engineering tools. If anybody's interested in LaTeX for their report writing. So those are some logistics, some administrative information. The module is normally set up as 50% coursework and 50% examination. So that means more coursework than usual. Right? So the coursework is a group project, and Ben is going to give you all the details next semester, unless that changes. These are some of the recommended textbooks. You can get free software engineering textbooks from the textbooks website that I mentioned. This one is the one that I based the lecture notes on for object-oriented design. It's still my favorite book. I still haven't seen a book that's as good as this one on software design. And don't be afraid to buy copies of the books. You know, you can buy used copies of the books for cheap. if you're worried about money and all that stuff. This is one of my favorite quotes when it comes to books, purchasing books. If you think education is expensive, try ignorance. It's one of my favorite quotes. That's from the president of Harvard University until 1990. So don't be afraid to invest money in your education in books. This is a very popular topic of conversation at Swansea University. Investing money in books. Don't be afraid to do that.
Is that book in the library?
Which one?
Designing.
I actually don't know if it's in the library. Yeah. Actually don't know. I can say, I when I was a student taking this module, I just bought the book and I read it. So all the material will also be on Blackboard. Right, there's our web page, and there'll be supplementary handouts. The slides are a good starting point, but be prepared to take additional notes, right, while we're presenting. Don't be afraid to read supplementary material, like I mentioned, supplementary books. You can get lots of free textbooks at this webpage. 15 credits is about 150 hours of study. So if you subtract off the lecture hours, you have about 135 hours for independent study. Did everybody know that Swansea University has a guide that for every 10 credits it maps roughly to 100 hours of study? Just in case that's interesting for you. It's a nice guideline to have to think about how much work and how much time you need to invest. And we do require that you attend the lecture, and that's basically for the group work. Right? Imagine there's a group of 5 people, and there's one that never attended class. They're not going to be able to contribute very well to the group work. So we require that everybody attends the class. And it's not fair if one group member doesn't know anything because they skipped all the lectures. Right? And this is a fun slide. This is more for undergraduates because master's students generally attend their lectures. But I like it anyway, so I threw it in here anyways. It's a graph. People have done studies on attendance versus scores and things like that. And this is a study of that nature, attendance versus attainment for over 5 years. Right, and here on the y-axis is the attendance rate, so up to 90% attendance. And then on the x-axis are different subjects. Right, I know SE is software engineering. I don't remember what the rest of them are. And then those are the scores that they got, the classifications that they got in the end. So you can see it's easy to see that if you attend your lectures, you get the highest scores. That's just some data that backs up this statement, right? And the people that were failing only managed to go to half of their lectures, roughly. Right? It's not a big surprise. Probably the people that failed stopped attending class about halfway through, something like that. Maybe. I don't know exactly what the distribution looks like. It's just some real data that supports this idea that attendance is related to how well you do in a class. Some people dispute that, and this is evidence for that. So we start out with introductory material, then we talk about software design, a little bit about implementation and testing, right? And the web page has a more detailed syllabus. I can say that we're going to focus a lot in the theory part on software design. This is going to be the main focus of the theory part of the module. So let's jump in. What is software engineering? Because a lot of people don't know what software engineering is, actually. And so I'm going to try to explain it right now. We can try to look it up in the dictionary. I did look it up in the dictionary, and I saw the definitions that were there, but I didn't like the definitions very much. So I wrote this down. Software engineering is the construction and management of large software projects, also known as software project management. So up until now, if you may have experienced small programs. You may have written a Hello World program or something more sophisticated, like a program that, I don't know, plays checkers. Has anybody written small programs already?
Hello World program.
Hello World and those types of things. Find all the prime numbers and like the Towers of Hanoi and some of those things. I compare those small programs to Post-it notes. This is a metaphor, right, or an analogy. So imagine a small program like Hello World, or sort 100 numbers and things like that as a Post-it note. How do you organize a Post-it note? That's a funny question, isn't it? You don't. You put it on the wall. So why do I ask that question? How do you organize a Post-it note? It's a silly question. It's because when you're writing those small programs, you're not really thinking about how to organize it necessarily. It hasn't hit you yet, right? But what happens when you have a bunch of Post-it notes? Then you have probably a special space to put them on. Maybe you lay them out. I don't know if you guys use Post-it notes, but as soon as you have 10 or 15 of them, it starts to get difficult to find, like, where did I write that note? So you need to start thinking about organizing your Post-it notes. But those are just small pieces of information, right? The next, if we want to have a larger collection of information, we might put it in a book, right? It makes sense. We don't want to be going into the library and searching Post-it notes, right? That would be difficult. So we search for books. The next step up, right? If we put lots of Post-it notes. But think about a book. A lot of time and effort goes into organizing a book. A lot, right? We come up with a title. We construct sentences. We construct paragraphs of related sentences. We construct chapters of related paragraphs. Then we add a table of contents, right? And we have an index that helps us find topics if we don't want to just scan linearly through everything. So organizing a book is non-trivial. Has anybody written a book? I've actually written a book. And I spent a few days, 3 days, just working on the index. Serious effort goes into organizing a book. And many people are involved, actually. Not just one person, but a team of people are involved. You have publishers, right, like Springer. You have people helping out with formatting, maybe. You have printing companies. You have companies that are responsible for people that are responsible for copyrights, and you have other people involved like marketing and distribution and all that. So just publishing a book is a serious effort, right? It's not one person generally. Now, today it is different with ebooks, but still it's not one person, because if you post your ebook on Amazon, there have been collectively thousands of man-years invested into getting that up and running. Okay, that's just one book, right? This analogy can go on. How do you organize a shelf of books? If you have 5 books, you don't think about organizing them. But as soon as they reach a critical mass, you start to think about how to organize them, right? So if you get hundreds of books, or thousands or millions of books, you put them in a library, right? And then you have to think about how to organize the library. And that's another very non-trivial process. How do you organize a library that spans 25 floors and has millions of books? It's a good question. It's a very good question. So you can get a degree in library science that's just about organizing books and things like that. I went to a University of Massachusetts, that had a 25-story library with millions of books in it. So you have to think very carefully about how to organize that. Otherwise, you're never going to find anything. And by the way, just for fun, imagine what happens if you walk into this library and just take a random book and just put it in a random place. It's probably, it might never be found ever, for the next million years. Anyways, the point is, a lot of thought and effort goes into organization, large collections of information. And that's very much related to software engineering. How do you organize your software when it gets bigger and bigger and bigger? It needs an organizational process. That's what software engineering is all about. How to organize. So software engineering involves teams. Large, useful software applications generally require a team. If you're building something out of Legos, you don't necessarily need a team. It's pretty cool if you do have a team. But you don't really need a team if you're building something out of Legos. But as soon as you start building the serious stuff that we really use, like houses and buildings and this building that we're in right now, you need a team of serious people like architects, carpenters, electricians, plumbers, designers, and so on. Although I have seen documentaries where people try to build a house all by themselves. They usually cheat though, right? They do bring in a few extra people on some of the stuff. But it's impressive though, some people can build a house by themselves. What about a bigger building? Then you have to, the planning, I have planning in bold-faced exclamation point, right? There are people that study this as their career, right? There's the architectural aspect, there's the engineering aspect, and there's the construction aspect. There are lots and lots of different aspects. So if you want to build something big, or if you want to build a 25-story library. So successful software applications require a plan, right? So when you're building something out of Legos, you don't necessarily plan it. But when you start building a house or something serious, you need a plan. So software engineering is about planning too, right? Coming up, how do you plan a software engineering project? So some of the things that we plan are the requirement specification. That's what we might call customer-oriented planning, how the software is going to be seen from the customer's point of view or the user's point of view. Then is software design. This we're going to call developer-oriented planning and organization. And this is where we're going to focus actually on this, because this is, in my opinion, the most important part of software engineering. And it's the most mysterious part of software engineering. It's the part that people understand the least. A lot of people don't understand what software design is. They understand what requirement specification is. Most people understand that. Most people understand what implementation is, sitting down and writing software, writing code. Most people understand what testing is, right? Maybe they don't have an advanced understanding. And most people understand what documentation is. But most people don't understand software design, which is why I'm obsessed with that, basically. This is where we're going to focus on the software design. Good question to ask at a job interview. Very good question to ask at a job interview. Has anybody ever had a job interview before? What's the last question at every job interview?
Any questions for me?
Exactly. Do you have any questions for me? So imagine you're going to get a job, trying to get a job in a software development department. They said, do you have any questions for me? You can say, yeah. How do you do your software design? Can you tell me a little bit about your software design process? That's going to be a very interesting conversation. Very interesting. Because you're going to find out a lot of information about what's happening inside that department with that question. Chances are you're going to ask this question and the person is not going to know. They're going to say, oh yeah, software design. Oh yeah, we use UML. Yep, check it out. I got UML. I have a UML poster on my wall, and I got a book called UML. We're all sorted. You know, you'll get some interesting responses there. And this is a planning process, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is opposed to implementation, and 3 more implementation. So implementation, and 3 more implementation is not a plan. There's no plan. But this is what people know about, right? This is a fun topic. Common software engineering misconceptions. Programming equals software engineering. This is a common misconception. A lot of people say, I have an idea for a software product, but I don't know how to program. So I'm just going to go to the local school and take Programming 101 and 102, hopefully. And then when I know how to program, I'll release my software product. It's not like that. Programming and software engineering are not the same. That's the same as this. Implementation, programming is implementation. That's not the same as software engineering, which is the planning. Right? It's not the same. But a lot of people think of it as the same. They think, programming, software engineering.
I mean, is it right to say that people are confusing doing with being? So what you're coming with is the being of the actual software design. How's it going to be?
Yeah.
Rather than simply doing and hoping the being's going to drop out.
Another way of saying it is the programming is the how and the design is the what. That's another way to think about what's going to happen. Not, what are we going to do? Not how are we going to do it, just what are we going to do? What are we going to do?
Design more like a creative pattern.
Design is definitely more creative, yes. It's not black and white, it's not binary. And multiple designs can lead to success. So it's not just one design equals success, but multiple designs can go equal success. Maybe I'll stand up a little bit. It's very noisy. As much as I like fresh air, it's a little bit noisy. I definitely like fresh air, and I usually open the windows. Not that these ones fully close anyways. Common misconception. This is one of my favorites. Software projects in the quote real world succeed. This is, I guess this is good and bad news, but it's a misconception. So software projects in the real world fail, actually. That's more of the reality than succeed. So here's just one study. There are many studies about this, right? Success versus failure in software projects. Here's just one of them. 68% of IT projects fail. Right? You can find this at this web page. And I have it on the next slide as well. It's just in one study. Projects fail so often that there's a euphemism for failing projects. People don't usually say that project failed. They don't usually say that. Oh, that's a failing project. They say something else. Do you know what people like to say instead of that project failed?
Those who found to plan.
They say, this is so funny, they say, we pulled the plug on that project. We pulled the plug on that. Okay, well, that's a euphemism for a failing project. Has anybody worked in industry yet? Have you got any of you? I have. I've worked at 3 different industry jobs before joining Swansea University. And I can proudly say I worked on 3 failing projects. 3 failing. The other thing that makes this complicated is that failing projects are a secret, right? IBM is not advertising their failing projects. No company is advertising their failing projects. That's a secret. It's a secret even to their own employees. At the last job I worked at, it took me, I would say at least a year before I figured out, oh, this is a failing project. What does that mean to fail? There are different definitions of failing, but one of the definitions is losing money. So it took me about a year before I realized, oh, this project that I'm working on loses a lot of money. A lot of money. Like millions of euros every year. And it's been doing so for more than 10 years. Like a long time. So it's a secret that even for the employees, it's a secret. I never got to see the finance statements of the project I was working on because they were bad financial statistics. It was a failure in terms of making money. Right? There are other ways to fail. Watch out for this expression, pull the plug. We pull the plug. I like that. So this is just a copy of the article. If you're interested in seeing that, you can look it up online. I looked it up just the other day, just when I was preparing this lecture to see if it was still online. There are lots of articles like this. Nobody knows how many projects actually fail and what percentage of projects actually fail, but you'll consistently see that more than half fail, right? So that's, I don't know if any of you have thought about this or studied this, but it's kind of surprising, isn't it? Like, oh, wow, when I get my first job, the chances are it's going to be a failing project. It's good to know about this. It's good to know. And then, why am I talking about this? Well, we're talking about the software crisis, or we're about to. But this module is about how to fix this problem. If you actually take the everything into account that we talk about in this module, you'll find out how to solve this problem. It doesn't have to be this way. You can write software that succeeds. You can do it. Just have to have some of the right strategies. The terms software engineer and quote software engineering department imply competence. So just saying, oh, I am a software engineer, or this is a software engineering department, does not necessarily mean that they are putting out good products that are succeeding and that people are competent. That's not true in the real world. Something really strange happens in the real world. I think it's a funny phrase, the real world. Something really strange happens in the real world that in computing and software engineering that doesn't happen in other disciplines. So, for example, at some of the companies I've worked at, we're trying to build software. I'm in a software development department, right? We're trying to build software. You just take a poll, an informal poll. Do you have a degree in computer science? No. What's your degree in? Economics. Do you have a degree in computer science? No, I don't. What's your degree in? Mathematics. Do you have a degree in computer science? No. I started, but I didn't finish. Does anybody... No. Most of the people trying to build the software engineering, the tools, don't have a degree in... They have the title, software engineer, but they don't have a degree a lot. I don't have a statistic for this. I have my own personal experience, which said that none of my colleagues had a degree in computer science, but they're all trying to build software. And that I find very strange. I find it really strange, and I don't think it happens so much in the other disciplines. If you want to go into engineering, you need a degree in engineering, right? If you want to build stuff, you need a degree that corresponds to building things. If you want to do chemistry, you don't fill a chemistry lab with a bunch of economics people, right? You need chemists. It happens in computer science, and I don't understand it. And it's still a mystery to me. Large sums of money imply competence. This is a common misconception. So some people think, oh, they are millionaires or billionaires, therefore they must know what they're doing. That's not true, actually. It's easy to find examples of large sums of money, people with large sums of money, failing at software. Does anybody know of an example already? There are some famous ones. Has anybody heard of any large, rich software projects that had lots of money failing?
It's like Mega Video.
What's Mega Video?
It's like an online streaming site that was taken off. It failed because it was like illegal, basically.
Okay.
Well, things like YouTube's often is crap most of the time.
Yeah, yeah.
MySpace.
MySpace. Here's a famous one. I guess if you're British, then you've heard of this example, right? The abandoned NHS IT system has cost £10 billion so far. So that's a lot of money. £10 billion. I guess you've heard of this story already? And you noticed that story already, right? An abandoned NHS patient record system has so far cost the taxpayer nearly £10 billion, with the final bill for what would have been the world's largest civilian computer system likely to be several hundreds of millions of pounds higher, right? So maybe if we read the whole article, we could find that pull the plug phrase. We had to pull the plug on this project. That's a famous example. You can find lots of one. This is one of my personal favorites. I don't know, but has anybody heard of WorldCom? This was based in the U.S. It's a company that went out of business, right? WorldCom's collapsed. The overview: WorldCom files for bankruptcy, largest case, right, in the U.S. history. It must be big, if it's the largest bankruptcy filing in U.S. history. Must be pretty big, right? WorldCom, plagued by the rapid erosion of its profits and an accounting scandal that created billions in illusionary earnings, last night submitted the largest bankruptcy filing in United States history. And if we go down, we can see a little bit about WorldCom. WorldCom, built through its rapid acquisitions, accumulated $41 billion in debts, funded in 1983. As an LDDS Communications, it became the nation's second largest long-distance company and the largest handler of internet data. So they went bust. And there's another very famous company that's similar, that did the same thing, called Enron. It's another disaster. So large sums of money do not necessarily mean that the people with the money are competent in this area. So we'll finish off with the software crisis. The software crisis is the first lecture. It's the classic first lecture of every software engineering module, I think, in probably the Western, well, I hope in the Western Hemisphere. The software crisis is a term used to describe the impact of rapid increases in computing power and complexity of problems which can be tackled. Right? It refers to the difficulty of writing correct, understandable, and verifiable computer programs. So it's a term, it's in chapter 1 of every software engineering book. It's the motivation behind software engineering as a subject that we study. Right? We want to study software engineering, we want to study software design and understand it so we can address the software crisis. Right? Here's a quote: "The major cause of the software crisis is that machines have become several orders of magnitude more powerful. As long as there were no machines, programming was no problem at all. When we had a few weak computers, programming became a mild problem, and now we have gigantic computers. Programming has become an equally gigantic problem." Right? And this is a quote from E. Dijkstra in 1972, one of the most famous computer scientists that ever lived. Right? And it's an old quote. It's still very relevant. And you can experience the software crisis every day, right? Every day. You go to a bank machine, it's out of order. You try to start your laptop, it crashes. You try to do something, it crashes. Your phone crashes. Software is crashing all the time, right? You try to check your flight, you get an error. Sorry, you can't check your flight right now. Happens. Software is failing all over the place. The causes of software crisis are linked to the overall complexity of software processes and the relative maturity of software engineering. Right? The crisis manifests itself in several ways. Right? Projects run over budgets. Projects run over time. Software is very inefficient. Software is of low quality. I think we can all think of our own personal experiences. Software does not meet the requirements, and so on. Software is never delivered. This happens more often than you think. That's the part of the pull the plug business. We can see that all over the place, the software crisis. Right? And so there's a Wikipedia page, by the way, just for the software crisis if you want to look at it in more detail. But this module is all about how to solve this problem, right? How to address the software crisis, how to design and plan software projects that succeed. Are there any questions? Comments? Okay, then we will stop here, and I will try to find out what's happening with the module timetable this afternoon. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it.
Oh, the exam, is that also at the end of next semester?
I can say that last year, the exam was during January. Oh, sorry, no, it was originally scheduled for January, and then it got moved to May. Sorry, so it actually took place in May, the exam. Yeah.
So this semester one is literally just going to be taught, teaching. And then,
Theoretically, that's how it was last year. Was the theory to prepare for the tests, and then the second semester was the developing a project and the examples. We'll try to clarify what's happening this year. Part of the thing is that the department is going through some changes, and we had 3 new employees starting yesterday, so those changes are still being propagated. Yep. Any other questions, comments? I bet you can't wait for the module to start.
Do we look at ethical considerations as well?
Ethical?
Considerations.
We have a module in ethics, a separate module. I wish people considered.
I'm just thinking of the Airbus incident that took place last year.
Yeah.
That's what the software designed for the engines.
We have a module dedicated to ethics in computer science. It's not the focus of this module, but we do have another module.
That's just how we do it. Do you think it should be a prerequisite?
The ethics. You know what? It's so funny because I'm so... Yeah, Boston's not a bad city. Lots of jobs there. Lots of computer scientists.
What made you?
I wanted to get an academic job.
Yeah.
And Swansea was hiring at the same time that I was looking. So just worked out. And I had a friend that was here already.
Okay.
So
Was it hard to make the?
transition.
Yeah.
I don't know how to answer that actually. I guess there is some culture clash.
Yeah.
But I wish I had known back then what I know now. Like there are certainly things that you can do to make your life easier when you're moving.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say the culture clash was such a big deal,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah. Just the moving, moving anywhere, any long distance location has a special set of challenges.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really, well, at least for the Western world,
Yeah.
I think it's always it's mostly a common set of challenges. Finding a job, for example, building a network, a professional network, building a social network.
Yeah.
These sorts of things. Those are like the 3 main challenges. And I would have liked to have known what I know now.
Yeah.
Back then, obviously.
Yeah.
But once you learn those skills, like I feel like I know those skills pretty well now.
Yeah.
And I can live anywhere in the Western world, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did you ever feel like at the start where you I've made a mistake, or because I spent before I did my undergrad in Cardiff Met, I spent a year in Aston in Birmingham,
Okay.
and I was like, this is a mistake, and
Why?
then I just left.
Why did you think that was a mistake?
I just didn't fit in, didn't like the city.
Okay, in Birmingham.
Yeah, Birmingham. Have you been to?
I like Birmingham, actually.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't like it.
It's not that far from Cardiff, but I guess you were going from Bridgend to Birmingham?
Oh no, I moved. I lived with walls and everything.
Yeah, so I don't know. I quite like Birmingham, and it's, I think it's a pretty good city actually. Yeah, I have some colleagues that I work with in Birmingham. And I know a faculty member from psychology that went from here to Aston.
Yeah.
I don't know about the.
That's where I was in Aston.
I don't know anything about Aston University.
Yeah.
I I just think that it's a pretty cool city. It's not like perfect, but you know, I think it's very livable. Let's say. But yeah, it's you know if you can figure out how to build like your social and professional networks, those are like the key skills, I think. It's a big topic, actually. I could give a lecture.
You stop modeling.
that I don't know if I guess there must exist people that give lectures on that topic. Just
There's probably like courses online that charge you like £100 how to build your social and professional network.
Yeah. I think that's good, though. I think that's good. I wish I had taken one of those classes or when I moved the first time, you know, or actually, you know, yeah. I mean, that's good knowledge to have, actually. Yeah. And I also noticed that whenever somebody moves, not just me, they go through this psychological process where they build up a map, a mental map of all the things they like. So maybe they go to a pizza place and they say, oh, I discovered this new, or not new, but new for that person, pizza place, and I just love the pizza there. And then slowly over time, they build up these things. It takes time, though.
Yeah.
It takes years to build up this collection of things that they like.
Yeah.
But that's what I think every person goes through when they move to a new place.
Yeah.
And so when they do move to a new place, they have forgotten that they went through that process in their previous residence.
Yeah.
They don't realize, oh, I went through this process in my previous residence. And now I'm going through it again. So the only thing that the mind tells them is, oh, I miss all the things I used to like at my old residence, and I'm missing those things here. But actually, there's a whole collection of things at the new place that they haven't discovered yet, that they will, and build up their mental world of mental stimulation map, or whatever you want to call it. So that's something I've seen by observing people, you know, and hearing people talk to each other, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's an interesting topic. It's a very interesting topic. So it's good to know that you need to go through that process of discovering all the things that you like in the new place, you know. And people generally tend to forget the things that they didn't like about the old place.
Yeah, that's true.